Well, great. Today, I have a pleasure of moderating the panel with my esteemed friends over here. So we'll talk about all things growth in e-commerce and e-commerce tech. We'll cover areas around what are the hot trends in growth. We'll talk about the role of AI in growth in e-commerce and e-commerce tech. The roadmap is going to be the following, which will start with some of the broad AI trends. Then we'll talk about traffic, then conversion, then experience. So we'll sort of follow that sort of approach, which is a typical e-commerce funnel. So I'm sure we'll essentially unravel a bunch of trends and technologies in that. So, and we also have a very good sort of a combination over here with Jatin coming from a retailer, managing a lot of things around omni-channel and shopper experience, which is touching digital, and store and all of that stuff. We got Swetha, who's working at a brand and looking at some of the broader trends that are happening within brands, especially as it comes to growth. How does a traditional brand, or even overall as a brand, how do you grow in this day and age? And then we've got two very esteemed founders who are sort of running some very interesting companies in this space. Diaz runs a company called Jivox, who's essentially bringing some new age techniques to drive technologies in retail media. And Abhinav runs probably the largest online pharmacy in Canada. So we'll sort of go through, we'll have a very good, unique, diverse perspective on all of this. But before we jump in, maybe just like a 2-3 line introduction, what you do would be great. Maybe starting with Swetha, yourself.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Hey guys, I'm Swetha Basavaraj. I lead all of data and AI at Samsung Ads right now. But prior to that, I have like a vast experience in ad tech in general. So talk about upper funnel, low funnel, anything in between. That's something I work on.
Hi everyone, I'm Diaz, Nesamoney, founder and CEO of Jivox. So at Jivox, what we do is use AI to generate dynamic and personalized product ads that can be delivered across multiple retail media networks using a very precise retail data. So we provide the automation as brands try to go across the various retail media platforms that are available there.
I'm Abhinav, co-founder and president of PocketPills, leading online pharmacy in Canada. Prior to this, I had co-founded a company called Rocket Fuel, where we built big data AI system to automatically target and optimize ads. So a little bit of ad tech and e-commerce experience. Over to you, Jatin.
Thank you. Jatin, Pahuja, I lead the app and the site experiences, so digital experiences for Albertsons. Albertsons has 15 plus brands. It's one of the largest grocery supermarkets, including the Safeway brand that we have local here.
Perfect, thanks guys. And my name is Guru. I run a company called CommerceIQ, founded this. We've raised our Series D, and before that sold a company called Boomerang Commerce to Lowe's, the hardware store. Great. So actually, let's start with you, Diaz. Maybe want to start to unravel some broader trends, technology trends. Of course, as a founder CEO, you're looking to invest in area and allocate capital in areas which are hot and upcoming and trending. And growth essentially seems to be, the formula for growth seems to be changing quite a bit recently. Earlier, it used to be very linear, a lot more linear in terms of how you capture customers and shoppers. Now it's anything but linear. And so with that, complexity comes in a lot of things that you could be doing with on where do you invest. Where are you seeing the opportunities in e-commerce tech, especially if there's a founder in the audience, or if there's a VC in the audience? What is the hot and trending space in growth at this point?
Yeah, so, obviously, everybody's talking about AI, and AI is, of course, one of the forces in commerce. But I think it's very foundational in terms of the change for companies looking for growth. It used to be advertising on search and so on was sort of the go-to, but now, I was just talking outside about how we're all learning to use Gen AI platforms to effectively do our search. And even search itself has changed. So, Amazon has about 50% of all product searches, right? TikTok is used by younger generation for search. So it's fundamentally changing things. I was quite intrigued last week when OpenAI announced shopping features built into the platform, right? Now, suddenly, if you're a brand and you're trying to gain growth and visibility, where should you be? Should you be on search? Should you be on social platforms? Should you wait for OpenAI to? Right now, it's not sponsored, so it's sort of just free form. So foundational change, right? So I think one has to be very aware of that. The other is retail media, and Amazon showed the world how retail data can provide the most precise and relevant engagement with consumers. And that, I think, is also a foundational change, right? Because, if you're a growth brand, you would say, well, I'll buy some ads on search, I'll buy some Facebook ads, I'll buy, various ads anywhere. But I think, especially for consumer products, right, retail media offers precise data to personalize ad experiences closest to the point of purchase, right? So it's in store or on a retailer's site or anywhere, at least powered by the retailer's data. Many brands that I speak to, both young and large ones, are basically saying, we used to run our ads based on broad knowledge of audiences. Oh, these are people that are, like sports. Why? Because they went to New York Times sports page or something like that. But you know what? Amazon can tell you exactly who's in the market for tennis equipment, right? So that's foundational. So I believe the convergence of AI and retail media is a very foundational and powerful force for growth.
Also, I think the point about retail media that you make is very powerful. I don't know if many of us realize this. About 10 years ago, retail media had $0 flowing through. It wasn't even invented. And today, this year, retail media will be moving 2 times the advertising spend on TV. Just TV is $55 billion in the US, and retail media is crossing $100 billion in the US. Think about it. All your Super Bowl ads to all the Geico, all the nagging Geico ads that you see, all of that put aside, you get double of that spend coming to retail media. So that space is like exploding like crazy. But we'll come to that in a second, because I want to juxtapose that with the old sort of first generation ad tech. How is it different? Or not? Like, we'll sort of explore that. But I want to stay on this topic a little bit, and maybe Jatin, with you, especially as you're sort of looking at trends within a very well-capitalized and a very successful grocer and retailers as such. Are there technology, like how are large companies and large retailers like yourself, awesome footprint across America, how are you thinking about AI and technology to drive some growth tactics at this point?
Definitely. I'm very glad to be here. I'll probably talk about 3 things here. I think maybe one of the trends that I think maybe in a couple of years will become much more prevalent. I think we touched on the last panel too. And then maybe a trend that we're starting to see now, and then something which started a few years ago but still very relevant. So starting with I think the last session, Prakhar and Gautam, they talked a lot about how the shopping is going to change in the next couple of years. And talking about the fundamental change that Diaz mentioned, it's fundamentally changing how everyone is interacting with various technologies. Now, instead of finding answers, they're seeking answers. ChatGPT, I think we see shopping changing in a similar manner sometime down the line. So I think this is how customers interact with the brands and how they discover and decide and engage is going to change. This also means it could go as simple as delegated shopping. Do this for me, what I purchase this for me. Or it could essentially means I just don't even have to think about it. I just get what I need. I order the same groceries a lot of same groceries every week, and I get them every week. The second thing I would say is, which we're starting to see now, is with some of these new technologies, we can build a much more deepening customer relationship, as you may all see with ChatGPT. All the interfaces are not getting into much more conversational interfaces, so much more intuitive, much more natural, like interfaces with technology. So we see that trend coming in very, very soon. Like, I'll just take an example. Like today, like we still have to think about like, oh, what should I pack for my, let's say, son's lunch? But in the future, there would be technologies where you can directly ask, right? Okay, I need to pack a savory snack for my kid's lunch. So that multi-dimensional or multi-model query, like a system can understand. It's a savory flavor. It's a food type of snacks. It's like packaging consideration for lunch, and it can give you some very quick answers, very relevant answers. So this is something we're starting to see now. And the third thing I would say, which is like we started a few years ago, still very relevant, is like how this data and decision across various channels, whether it's like your app or store or another challenge, is stitched together to build that very relevant experience for you and very contextual experience for you, is something that is very relevant now and will continue to be relevant in the age of AI in the next few years.
But I think those are good trends. Are you seeing any of those? Like, those all make very logical sense to me. But when it comes to the shopper, like grocery purchase is so kind of like ingrained in all of us. We just go to the store and pick up stuff and come back. Amazon tried to disrupt it. They couldn't. Prime Now, Fresh, Pantry, you name it, like so many things that they launched. And now you're talking about like jump to AI and like personal shopping assistant and stuff like that. Like, what areas is it really taking off? Are there areas which you believe, like from a shopper behavior perspective, that you can see that hockey stick sort of kick in some specific areas in those things?
Yeah, no, I think like the delegated shopping isn't here yet, but we definitely see a lot of like things like when it comes to personalization, there are areas, I think Emily talked about that as well, like how people interact with us like online or in the store, I think it's changing. And like if we can stitch the data together across the channel, it's like dramatically changing. Like again, take another example, like let's say I ordered the same milk every week, and now maybe yesterday I got a milk in the store, so I know I don't need the milk today. The system should know and actually present those. So I think all of those simple nudges have been very much appreciated by the customers, and it shows not just in like better customer experience, but also in the business growth.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think having some specific nudges and maybe even like making the funnel a little bit more, a cart a little bit more intelligent. So that,
very intelligent,
yeah, makes sense. Abhinav, going to you, maybe like PocketPills, do you first of all consider yourself a brand or a retailer? And maybe you can tell me, Guru, it's an irrelevant question because the lines are blurring. But like, I'm wondering how you sort of think about driving traffic, and are there new age techniques in the last 1 or 2 years that you're starting to use to drive growth in operating a website? It's like, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was fine to have like Harrys.com or Zulily.com. All of these things were high flying. A lot of that after the VC money sort of was taken away, the growth started to really plummet in a lot of these direct-to-consumer brands, and you're still really operating effectively. I'm wondering, what is the secret? What are the trends that you're seeing in operating a retailer or a brand?
So at some level, we are a retailer, right? Except the products we are selling are individual drugs, and often when you go to the pharmacy and let's say you're buying metformin, you don't care who actually manufactured it, right? That's largely true, right? I would say in 99% of cases. So essentially what distinguishes us is the kind of service we are able to provide to our customers. In that sense, we actually become more of a brand, right? I want to get my medications from PocketPills because they take care of me, right? Because they take care of all the mundane work that's normally involved. I can save the time it takes to go to the pharmacy. I don't have to worry when my medications are running out because PocketPills takes care of it, right? So from that sense, we are a brand. And in terms of what's the focus for driving growth, right? I'll just give a little more context on the pharmacy industry, right? So 87% of medications sold, weighted by revenue, are chronic. So these are medications needed by people on a regular basis. This could be for hypertension, this could be for diabetes and other ailments, right? So it's a category which is just meant to be very repetitive, right? Now, Second bit is the average revenue per user per year is upwards of $1,000 in a pharmacy. Now, what that means is CAC will be high. So how do you get the most out of CAC? Well, you focus on LTV CAC. And the way you get LTV CAC to be high is by making sure your retention is high, right? And to get the retention to be high, we focus a lot on delightful experiences for our customers, right? Sadly, healthcare is still driven by faxes flying around, people uploading images, phone calls, right? So we have built layers, that kind of convert these age-old technologies into APIs, right? Like we are building automatic transcription of faxes, right? And this allows us to provide instant delightful experiences. And then on the retention side, what we do is we make it super easy for people to set their medications on autofill, so medications get delivered before they run out. Typically, prescriptions are 6 to 12 months, so when the people are reaching the term of their prescription, they need to go to the doctor again, right? So we make that renewal process very easy as well, right? And in order to do these refill and renewal, in order to make the refill and renewal easy, we invest in connecting with our customers through email, SMS, and push notification, right? And all of these can be personalized very well. You can use AI to personalize when you send the message. You can personalize the subject. You can personalize the content as well, right? Just one data point from my previous life, right? So what we observed was if you plot interest in buying a product versus days since you expressed interest in that product for the first time, it kind of decays like this, which makes sense, right? If you go from day n to day n plus 1, either I have already purchased the product or I'm no longer interested. But the interesting bit is if you break it down into, let's say, hours, so you're looking now hours since last hours since first expressed interest in the product, it's actually a sine curve imposed onto that decay. So essentially, humans are in the same mode at around the same time every day, right? So you can actually leverage it to personalize when you send the messages as well. So we are, focusing a lot on retention and repeat customers to drive growth.
Anything you think has changed dramatically in terms of how you personalize and all of that in the last 1 or 2 years versus what you were doing before, especially with any new tools and tools that you're using for which are AI based and all that?
Maybe I'll share 2 things there, right? One, we are beginning to use AI tools in just creating our ad copies a lot. And I would say they're just beautiful. So, you can, we have first-party images, right, that we actually either created or took through photographers. Then you can leverage them to create video ads. It's just amazing how you can leverage these technologies to go very broad, right? And Diaz's company is also solving some of those problems. Second thing, maybe I'll compare not 2 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. So this was at Rocket Fuel. So we were doing display advertising there, and whenever you talk to brands, they'll basically give you 3 ad sizes, 728 by 90, 300 by 600, and 300 by 250. Why? These are the most common ad sizes, right? With the democratization of display advertising through ad exchanges, we could see these 3 ad sizes only cover 80% of inventory. So now if you can create all the other ad sizes, you can actually leverage the 100% of inventory available, right? So we would try to, create those for brands. Often brands were either not acceptable or they'll say, oh, we don't like it. But I think the age we are in, AI can be used to actually, so brands themselves can create gigantic number of ad copies, right, to actually leverage all the ad opportunities available online.
That's great. Swetha, maybe coming to you in terms of like maybe starting to talk about traffic. You do a lot of data science for one of the largest brands and a brand that we love. In general, how are you seeing some trends shift? Are you seeing some like a new variety of traffic coming in or new shift in the way that you're seeing traffic come in? And any comments in terms of how you're going about analyzing the sources of traffic?
Sure. So when we think of traffic, which is more of like, the brand awareness, or be it like, just reach the highest number of possible people, and you find the places where you can reach them. So in terms of how do we reach these people, the interfaces with which we interact now have changed. Like previously, it was a linear TV. Now everybody uses digital CTV, as we call it, right? Like everybody just plugs into an app and starts looking at that. So how do we find your users? I think that has become a primary topic. Where do I find my users to reach them at the right frequency, right? It's not just about reaching them at one time, but reaching them at the right frequency and effectively. So when you think of any brand who wants to grow, there are two ways to do it. One is like, this medium has worked for you, you continue to leverage that medium. Or you experiment and see as to maybe there are other mediums which will help you expand your user base, right? So this is where like
new to brand.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically you should be able to experiment with different mediums with which you want to reach your users. And the trends that we are also seeing is just on a high level, a lot of, I think, creatives or, the ad units that we have on, be it the display or the video, there is a lot of variety that we are seeing now. One of the things that, because there is a lot of mediums with which, brands want to experiment, one thing that we are also seeing is how do we collect the data that it is actually impactful to a user. So what also is something that a lot of these, as we call it as the publishers or the retail media folks, they want to try is to get that feedback from the client, from the user, on whether this particular ad was effective or not. So a lot of these synthetic surveys are also being created through which you're able to get that feedback from the user, which will help you to optimize when you go down the funnel. So you have a traffic that you want to reach, you have different mediums through which you want to reach, but you also want to understand the efficacy of these mediums, and you have different ways to get that data if you don't have that directly through your own partner that you're working with. The second thing that we are also seeing is everybody is getting very serious about their data. So first-party data is something that we are seeing more and more. Even though, it may not be a brand where you'll go buy something, maybe it's an auto brand, you'll not go buy anything there, but they still collect a lot of data from there, which will help them to get this data into different platforms that they work with, and help them to identify, if not similar users, how can I maybe upsell to my existing clients, right? Because data, as much as you want to rely on your publishers or the retail media folks, it's important to build your own CRM systems. And that's another trend that we are seeing, that everybody has invested in technology and are looking to leverage their data to work with the partners, and different technology to work with partners.
I think CTV that you mentioned is super interesting, where it's not just a dumb pipe where you're just throwing a bunch of dollars and you don't know what's happening. It's really starting to help. Can I connect my Prime membership to the ads that you see on Prime Video? That's very interesting. It's starting to come up quite a bit as we talk to brands as well on that. Diaz, I'm also curious to know what you have to say in terms of say the traffic trends. Especially you deal with a lot from a retail media perspective. Is there something that's earth-shattering that's happening on that end?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I feel is being underestimated is the power of influencers and helping, drive traffic. You sort of look at the growth of TikTok as a platform, and you sort of, I was doing some research then, and I always joke about how if you want to know what the latest trends are in marketing, talk to your teenage kids, right? And I've got two, one's a little older than that. And I just observed them, most of what they buy, from the flavor of milk to clothing, whatever, is based on what they saw on TikTok. Right? So I was thinking about it and saying, what's really going on here? I feel like influencer content is starting to dominate the beginning of the user journey. And there's actually research that came out saying that, especially the younger generation, they trust influencers more than they trust brands. So in other words, you spend all this money on TV and this, that, and the other, trying to build your brand, and yet people sort of are feeling like it's not authentic and it's all, sort of made up. They don't believe a lot of the messaging that's out there. But they believe a popular, movie star, or even some blogger or TikTok star more than they believe the big brand messaging that's out there. I think that's a trend that's not to be ignored. And actually, we're seeing even in retail media. I actually spoke to one of our customers last week about incorporating this influencer content into ad creative, right? And, traditionally it was you had the star reviews, right? 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. Well, they're thinking, well, why not actually have an influencer say, hey, I bought this product, I love it, it's great, I use it every day. So I feel like that's something that is not talked about enough. It sort of is a little bit in the microcosm of TikTok and YouTube also. But I think that's going to be a big play.
So are you then driving traffic to that TikTok page which is talking about it, or are you actually changing the creative itself to sort of like picture of the influencer or something like that?
Well, a little bit of both. So today on TikTok, what's happening is they did an integration with Shopify, right?
Yep.
So if you're a merchant on Shopify, which is where a lot of DTC brands and younger brands, set up their storefronts and so on, you can just buy from a TikTok video. So an influencer posts something, and they get paid to promote some product. You click on it, and you can just purchase there. What we're thinking is, well, what if you took some of that same UGC content and put it in an ad, in a programmatic ad or in a retail media ad? So that's something that opens up outside of the TikTok microcosm to bigger brands who maybe, don't want to direct all their spend to TikTok. How do you expand that out and use that same influencer content in other ads, right? So that's, it's still very early days, and I think there's a lot of experimentation, but the initial test seems to show that the engagement levels are much higher because of the authenticity of who is saying this is a great product, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think when reviews came, that was the biggest conversion driver when I was at Amazon.
Yep.
Like, reviews was the biggest, like, more than what the brand would say. Like, you're just skipping all of that and going to reviews, and now this is like reviews supercharged, which is so...
Well, exactly, because people don't necessarily believe reviews anymore, right? So, so it's more authentic, and the younger generation know all the famous TikTokers and the YouTubers and so on, so they're kind of definitely getting influenced by what they buy and what they use.
There's a new trend where, like, Amazon released this thing called Amazon AMC. So I'm wondering if any of you are sort of integrating and thinking through that, which is, say, clean rooms. They've essentially opened up clean rooms with hashed customer IDs. You can, Swetha, to your point, like, yes, my customer IDs are sacrosanct to me. I'm not going to share it with you. But if there's a clean room where I can hash it and put it and look at and do a join over there to figure out how we can monetize it better for things like new to brand, I'll be willing to pay a lot more to acquire a new customer than or a high lifetime value customer than not. So wondering if there are any, that seems to be new, new at least in retail media. Maybe Abhinav, you saw that in the ad tech, the 1.0 ad tech world. Just curious on what y'all are seeing with the clean rooms and new things like that on that.
I can give my perspective on it. So clean rooms, just for everybody's understanding. So clean rooms is like intermediate partner. It's a neutral partner There are multiple of them, like Infosum, Habu, and there are multiple partners there. So you have your brand, and then you have your publisher or the place where you can buy your slots, those are the publisher. So they are sitting in the middle and trying to help you both talk to one another without actually having to exchange the data. So there are a few use cases or a few ways that you can collaborate with one another. Measurement is huge. So like I was saying, you need to be able to understand the effectiveness of your ad and who you have been able to reach. A lot of the times when you get metrics from your publisher on like, okay, here are like, you reach these many audiences and here is your conversions, the number of conversions or like, your rate of conversions, you don't have too much insights on, okay, who are these users or like, what were some of the additional behavioral information about these users. So what happens with the clean room setups is that you're able to like identify some of the aggregate level information, not necessarily at an ID level, but at an aggregate level information, you're able to get additional insights. You're also able to measure the way like, your campaign has worked with that particular publisher. And also like, activation of your own first-party data to the publisher, wherein, like I was saying, you are creating a lot of this first-party data. You don't want to share that with anybody. So during the clean room setup, you are then sharing only the information that the other publisher has it on their side. So that makes it very easy to collaborate with one another. It is pretty powerful, not just from a brand perspective, but even from like a few publishers' standpoint as well. Just to give you an example, if Amazon wants to do a CTV buy for their advertisers, like the brands, they could potentially partner with any of the CTV player that may be there beyond Prime and try to find the insights of like, okay, I have these users who are in the market for, let's say, Nike shoes. Where do I find them? Like, what are the additional behavioral information I can get about this user? So are they like, watchers of HBO, a particular show, or are they like, additional information that you can potentially get from another publisher? So there is a collaboration not just happening between a brand and a publisher, but also between different publishers where they feel that they can give that more holistic view of a end user to the brand. So that's where like, the industry is coming together to make it all work from a brand perspective.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And if you go ahead, Abhinav, if you had a point to make.
No, yeah, I think, and one natural extension of what Swetha, you said is building models on that, right?
Yes.
To find other people who are like those users, right? And that thing, I think we were doing at Yahoo as well, the system we called internally at least as Dolly, if you remember the sheep, which was cloned the first time, right? And then I think some of the ad platforms like Facebook, Google also provide that. So it's a very natural progression. It's actually, I think, hugely beneficial for the brand as well, because now they can find more users who are going to have higher LTV and potentially, pay more for those users to acquire.
If I can also add, like I think it's a win-win for all. I think even coming from customer experience, customer standpoint, and like publisher, retailer standpoint, I think it just like makes it so relevant for the customer and so natively integrated into the experience, like because like what's right for them. I think it's just like win-win for all.
And when it comes to like say retailer, like almost every retailer is becoming a publisher now,
Yeah.
right? Like they are now have retail like display and retail and like optimize it, ability to engage with your customer in a new way, but you got to pay the retailer because they have the traffic. Yeah. How are you thinking about say the retailer monetization, and are there shopper monetization on websites like Albertsons, but in general? Are there trends that you can point to?
Yeah, so I think like I would say like as I just mentioned, right? I think it's I think what's working right now and what we see more and more is like how we can actually make it extremely relevant to the customer and create this as so tightly integrated that feels like another choice for customer versus an ad. So I think there's again, I would just say three things. First is very tight integration, native integration. So if we can figure out the right touch points where we see this can add value for the customer as well as retailer as well as publisher, I think it's publisher and brand. I think it's just those are the right moments, and we see a lot of success there. Second thing I would just say that I also already mentioned relevance. Second thing I would say is I think we also see the trend is evolving from basic ads to also very I would say storytelling based video experiences and other forms of. I think that is something that we're seeing a lot of success, getting all this information through various mechanisms and knowing what customers want at that moment and creating those seamless but very engaging experiences. It's very successful right now.
And of course, a lot of money in your pockets because brands are willing to pay a lot for that. So we talked about broader AI trends and growth. We talked about traffic, and I want to start moving towards conversion. And piggybacking on the point that Jatin you made, that to tee this up for you, Diaz, that on Prime Day I saw that one of the largest CPG brands was paying $40 for one click. One click, $40 on a keyword like diaper. Right? It's crazy because there's a new to brand element in that as well. So maybe just talk about some of the trend over there and the conversion and things.
I think one of the problems that's happening, across many retailers now. Amazon has a very, very large digital audience, so they can run a lot of ads there, so they can manage the cost of those ads. But as you go to other retailers, the amount of traffic they have on site is minimal. And so they need scale, right? So scale brings the prices down. So offsite, meaning running those ads on platforms like TikTok and Facebook and even programmatic is becoming a way to keep the cost down. Otherwise, all the advertisers want to be on Albertsons or on Kroger or whatever, and there's only so much inventory available. The other issue is incrementality, which is, hey, I bought that $40 search ad. Would somebody have bought my product anyway when they search for it, right? So I think the push is to, return better value, both by scaling the amount of inventory available, but also creating incrementality. If you're on New York Times and you're served an ad based on Albertsons, knowing that you bought particular products, that's truly incremental, right? And that also creates scale. Like if we're saying a lot of the money spent on upper funnel and branding is going to come to retail media, you better show incremental value. So I think that's one of the things that the industry is really thinking through right now.
Great, good stuff. Well, really appreciate the participation on this. Learned a lot from you guys. Thanks for all of this. So maybe, Dhruv, do you want to do some audience questions? Yeah.
I would just like to respond to what Diaz has mentioned, that the current trend has changed from our era where we see the reviews on products and then we tend to be influenced by those reviews to make a decision. But then now it's shifted to the influencers. I think it's because there's a blind spot that when you see a brand, you don't see the person. It means I don't know who's behind the brand, but and the new generation, they think they know the influencers because they watch them every day. So in that, they generate trust. And the other blind spot is that everywhere we go. By the way, I'm Wilson. I'm a technology architect and solution specialist. So I see a blind spot in that, we used to go everywhere and they will say, please give me a good Google review. But we all know that we can have multiple Google Gmail or Google accounts, right? And even if we do not patronize that outlet or buy that thing, we can even give it a review. So I think that the new generation, if you start to look at that, then suddenly those reviews, like what you have mentioned, that has lost its value. But on the other hand, an influencer would have a personal bias towards a lot of things. But reliable or validated reviews with good credibility would reflect the aggregated quality about that product. So I think that there's a gap that we need to close here. So it's a response, not. Thank you.
So that's a very good point. I think reviews when they came out, they were authentic, and now it's like, yeah, you can game it. So, but yeah, you can buy them. They pretty much have a farm. So any comments on that?
Yeah, it's, well, influencers are also bought in some ways, right? So, that's not necessarily a strong argument. I think it's, maybe the argument is more transparent, right? Like, because the fake reviews that happened, you didn't know if they were fake or not, right? Whereas if you feel like an influencer, it's I think, the younger generation voting with their eyeballs, so to speak. Like, if they feel as someone has become a shill for, today they're promoting this brand of soap, and the next day they're promoting another brand, they're like, are you being influenced by whoever's paying you, right? So I think that's maybe the difference, is the transparency of it. I don't know if I asked my kids if they would know whether somebody was paid to say something on that. Maybe some do and some don't. But I just feel it's a little more transparent that they were paid to do it.
Hi, everyone. So I heard you speak about data quite a bit, but nothing about payment data. So all of you have access to tremendous amount of payment data. What I hear is in detail, especially media spend, which is now 2x, is being influenced quite a bit. And also by payment data, you know what the disposable income is, what the categories are. So how has that influenced discovery?
One thing we are seeing is because a lot of these brands or the ad spend is happening on retailer website, there's only so much you're able to see with respect to transaction level data, because that's owned by the retailer. Brands do not get access to that, right? Because the purchase is happening with the retailer, and the retailer has bought on a wholesale from the brand. They bought like 5,000 TVs, and now they're selling. So you can't get that. However, you do get signals that lead to that, which is return on ad spend, or say, you do have to do double the amount of work, but now you have to start to see that are you starting to bump up in search for a certain keyword like a TV or a cereal, and start to invest more in that and stuff like that. So, but there is definitely a lack of transparency of payment data as such. We've almost I think most of us are used to now operating without the payment data. If we do get transaction level data, it's a holy grail. I don't think we get that.
I'll be very quick. Thank you so much. A question for Jatin. When I'm in Albertsons, if I download your app, I don't download your app, how can you know I'm there? And how can you push information to personalize my needs? Thank you.
And that's a great question. So I think for I hope you are on Albertsons or one of our brands like Safeway soon, by the way. But I think for us, I would just say without talking about specific numbers, we are a nationwide grocer, and we have a significant amount of customers going into our stores almost like everyday basis. So, and I think we have a very, very solid loyalty program, one of the best and one of the most engaged loyalty program, and tens of millions of members on the loyalty program. So when you're purchasing in Safeway and you're putting in your phone number to get the discounts or deals, we know who you are. So even if you don't have our app, we actually are able to really understand based on your shopping in stores and based on how you interact with us in the store. We understand how we can actually better we understand how we can better personalize the experience for you and offers for you. Yeah.
Jatin, Abhinav, Diaz, and Swetha, thank you so much for joining. And of course, they'll be available if you want to have an offline conversation. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.